Joining us, New York Times chief White House correspondent and MSNBC political analyst Peter Baker and NBC News correspondent Yasmin Vasugian. All right, so Peter, there's news on Steve Witkoff today. There's news on Steve Bannon today. There's news on assets moving around. Up until a couple of minutes ago, it seemed like Donald Trump was on the verge of making a decision. But then you had the press secretary come out and say he's going to make a decision in 2 weeks. And the reason I think it's important to bring that up is we've heard him say I'm going to make a decision in 2 weeks on so many things, so many times before. And I'm wondering, does that imply to you that maybe this is not coming? I mean, I know it's a big question on a big topic, but the 2 weeks thing, he's just said it so many times in the past, and it's never come to pass, those decisions or those announcements.
Yeah, I mean, definitely backing away from the edge of the military cliff here, right? By saying 2 weeks, he's giving himself time to rethink it, to see if the negotiations restart and actually lead anywhere useful, to see whether he can manage his politics at home, which seem to be quite fractious in terms of his base over that. You mentioned Steve Bannon, who's one of the ones, along with Tucker Carlson and other MAGA figures, leading the critique of the White House for even thinking about participating in this Israeli strike campaign against Iran. So he's basically put a pause button in effect on the sense that we were on the edge of an American involvement in the war, an offensive part of the war. Where that leads, we don't know. I mean, he himself said, nobody knows what I'm going to do. And of course, what he didn't say was maybe he doesn't know what he's going to do, because he doesn't, he's very torn here as far as we can tell, right? He has made a point in the 10 years he's been on the public stage of politics, of being against forever wars, against Middle East involvement, against using force that often. That doesn't mean he hasn't and won't. He obviously did, authorize a strike that killed Iran Soleimani during his first term, and obviously authorized the campaign against ISIS that he inherited from Barack Obama. But he also, as you mentioned, pulled back from one strike on Iran in retaliation for an attack on an American drone at the very last second. So where he goes on this, we can't tell right now, but he's basically hitting the pause button for a moment to see where this could lead.
I want to play a little bit from the show yesterday, and I think it's important to bring this back up. This is the vice chair of Senate Intel, Mark Warner, on this show talking about what he does know, but more likely what he does not know about what's happening. Let's play it.
I have no foggy idea what American policy is right now towards this circumstance. I'm the vice chair of the Intelligence Committee. If I don't have the foggiest idea, what do the American people know? And for that matter, what do our few friends remaining around the world know? Last week he was saying Israel can do this on our own without our help. Now, we have been helping them defensively, but now making these threats on tweet. What does unconditional surrender mean? Who is Iran supposed to surrender to? And as I said a little more respectfully, you start a war in the Middle East, it's easy to start. They are hard to end. And I thought the American public, one of the reasons I hired this guy was not to create endless wars in the Middle East. And with a lack of a policy, without any brief to Congress, for him to potentially take this action.
Peter, give me the context here. How normal is it for a member of the Gang of Eight to not have the foggiest idea of what the administration is doing when it comes to potentially striking a foreign government, striking their nuclear facilities, and saber rattling against their leader?
Yeah, I don't think Mark Warner should feel too lonely in this regard. I think there are people inside the administration who don't have the foggiest clue either what way the president's going to go, or, as he says, what the policy is, because it does seem to vary depending on whatever statement he makes. Sometimes it varies even within the same statement that he makes, right? He threatens on the one hand, some sort of an all-out attack and even a potential assassination against the Ayatollah Khamenei on 1 minute, and then the next minute he says, no, I'm really for negotiations. We have a real chance here. So how much is he rattling the saber in order to try to leverage that threat into a better negotiation? we'll see, right? I mean, his own people say, look, he is the master deal maker. That's obviously not something that's borne a lot of actual tangible results yet in this second term. But he may be using this uncertainty, this confusion, this sort of unpredictability as, in his view anyway, a tactic. It reminds you of the Nixonian strategy they called the madman strategy. He told Kissinger, his Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, to go out and tell other countries that he didn't know what Nixon was going to do because Nixon was so erratic and crazy. Well, in this case, you have a president, again, sort of so unpredictable that maybe that's part of the tactic, or maybe he just doesn't know what he's going to do yet.
Yeah, maybe. All right. The other thing that Senator Warner brought up, and this is a question we've had, is, if you take out the Ayatollah, you want regime change, and that's what Israel wants. It's what the U.S. wants long term. It's what a lot of
it feels like.
It's what a lot of the region wants.
Yeah.
What a lot of Iranians want as well. Maybe not this way, but who's there to take over?
Well, let's take a step back, because I think it's an important point that you made. And I think for a lot of folks that don't necessarily understand what has gone on with Iran for the last couple of years, I mean, we saw the protests during the Women Life Freedom movement, right? We know the large majority of Iranians do not like their current government.
It's a brutal regime.
It is a brutal regime that has killed people not only during the Women Life Freedom protests, but during the Arab Spring movement as well in 2009 to 2011. I mean, this is a regime that the large majority of Iranians do not want to see in power any longer, despite the fact that they took over back in 1979 after the Iranian Revolution. That being said, Iranians are extremely nationalist, right? They don't necessarily believe, though, with the fact that they don't want the regime in power, that the Israelis or Americans have their best interests in mind.
Yeah.
And they think that especially because the way in which this campaign has been carried out. And I only say that, Katie, because, I mean, they are running for their lives, literally and figuratively, if they can. And let's not forget, the large majority of Iranians make a couple $100s a month. That is the average salary. And we have an unemployment rate at almost 50%. So a lot of people don't have second homes. They don't have friends to go to outside of Tehran. And there's an internet blackout. So they don't know if they should be evacuating or not.
Or where they should go.
Or where they should even go.
They want to run, where they should run to.
To go to, exactly. And so for them, for so many of them, they've seen the death toll. We're looking at 600 plus people that have now died, including many civilians, young children that I know for a fact were in fact killed. Because of that, they say they're not taking us into account in this campaign. Had this been kind of a more strategic attack, taking out all of the nuclear sites, nuclear scientists, without the civilian death toll that we have seen so far, that seems like would be more of something that the Iranians could get on board with. But because we are now in a situation in which they're seeing this large death toll, they're running for their lives, literally and figuratively. They're in a place where they feel as if we want to do this on our own terms. And if you're going to go for regime change, as you just asked me, what happens next? And nobody knows the answer to that. And important to remind folks here, it's the exact same question we asked with the assault on Gaza. What does the day after look like? And we're still asking that question as well.
And you were mentioning that there's been hundreds of deaths.
Yeah.
The New York Times had a little bit on the civilian impact. And part of the reason why this has been hard for Western media to report is you can't get into Iran.
We can't get into Iran, yeah.
We're getting a lot on the impact of Israelis who have been killed. Mm-hmm. And, Israel is feeling strikes in the heart of Tel Aviv that they haven't felt before. And deaths. But let me just read a little bit about what's happening in Iran, including an 8-year-old girl who loved dancing in a red dress at her dentist's office, a 28-year-old national equestrian champion, a poet one week away from her 24th birthday, a graphic designer who worked at National Geographic, grandparents in their 80s. I mean, these are civilians who, I mean, if you're looking at the numbers, likely did not support the regime either.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, I'm Iranian American.
Yeah.
I have family inside Iran right now. My mother is trapped inside Iran. A good friend of my cousin's, they were asleep and they were killed in an attack. So this is affecting everybody. It has become very personal for Iranians. And because of the internet blackout, which is because of the Iranian government, because of the regime, right? You can actually call within Iran, but you can't call from outside Iran. Because of that, they don't know if their relatives, a couple miles away are still alive at this point, right? It's as if we're operating during a time in which the internet did not exist.
You've been able to get in touch with your mom?
Not for the last 2 days, but I know I have someone inside the country that's able to contact her, and I know she's okay.
That's good.
But it's not easy for a lot of people. And listen, I have access, and I'm able to reach her in ways in which other people may not be able to. But it's a difficult situation that a lot of folks are in right now, and and a lot of Iranians are worried about what that kind of quote unquote day after is going to look like, if in fact there is a day after. And again, it speaks to what you were just talking about with Peter, which I think is an important discussion as to what President Trump will do next. I mean, people realize and know that if and when the U.S. gets involved, this war will go from 0 to 60 or 20 to 60.
And I think it's also important to note that there are a lot of Iranian Americans here in the United States, a lot of Iranians who fled after the revolution,
Absolutely.
who can't go back. I mean, there's such a tie between this country and that country.
Yes.
Also a big tie between this country and Israel. It's very
There's
complicated.
a lot of Iranians that live in Israel right now.
Yeah.